Marco, we have known each other for a while now.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining today.
Thanks to you.
But before we start, could you maybe introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes. First of all, please be patient with me because I'm not very familiar in speaking in front of so many people. I'm Marco Gian. I'm from Italy, from Varese, that is a very small city close to Milan. I live there with my family, my wife and my son, Ludovico. And I'm working for Marelli, that is one of the main tier 1 automotive supplier. And currently I'm covering the role of head of material management since, let's say, 1 year and a half, or more or less, maybe 2 years. And I joined Marelli 7 years ago, in 2015. In my current role, I mainly focus on two main cluster of activities. One is inventory improvement, in terms of central team, so basically definition of a standard approach and standard tools. And the second cluster of activities is related to planning, and that's why I'm here today, because I'm currently leading the implementation of the SIOP process, so sales, inventory, and operations planning, integrated with the online solution. So this is in few words basically what I'm doing today.
Thanks, Marco. Marco, I know Marelli well, but maybe for the audience, could you give a brief overview of Marelli before we dive in?
Okay, I don't know if you know the history of Marelli. Marelli itself is a pretty new company. It was established in 2019, merging two historical companies. One is the former Magneti Marelli that was established in 1919 and located based in Italy. The other company is former Calsonic Kansei that was established in 1939 and based in Japan. So as you can imagine, two different companies, two completely different behavior, culture, different customers, a different approach. And as I said, from 2019, the two companies were merged, and now we have Marelli. Let's say a very quick introduction also on the products we are doing. I don't want to go in detail, but basically Marelli is composed by 7 main divisions you see on the slide, plus the aftermarket. We have almost 130 plants worldwide, with 50,000 employees that are, let's say, generating more than 10 billion euro turnover per year. So as you can imagine, the complexity is pretty high in terms of, let's say, number of products, number of divisions, number of plants. And basically this is in few, let's say, Marelli.
Thanks, Marco. And when you look at the current state of business and the current challenges that tier 1 automotive suppliers have, can you share a bit more about what are the business pressures at the moment and your supply chain challenges that you face?
I think we have 3 main priorities in terms of supply chain so far. The first one is related to visibility. Second one is flexibility, and third one is cost competitiveness. Going a little bit more in detail. If we refer to visibility as tier 1, we are in the middle between OEMs and tier 2s, 3s, and so on. So it's really key to have the right level of visibility. From one side, just to make an example, real life, we have the OEMs that are usually sharing a visibility in terms of demand for the next 6 to 9 months, with a decreasing level of reliability as far as we go in the future. On the other side, we have the tier 2s, for instance, manufacturers or semiconductors that are requiring us up to 18, 24 months visibility. So you see that there is basically a mismatch between the two horizons. So for us, it's really key to have a process supported by a tool that is able to cover this gap. So basically to enrich the forecast we are receiving from the customer, being able to define the most reliable demand for the future and share it with our supplier base. This is really a key topic for the success. And this is, was already there in the past, but is now even more important after COVID and after the last global semiconductor shortage. Visibility also in terms of potential risk. So it's really key, again, related to, for instance, global shortages, to have the possibility to foresee as early as possible potential issues we may have in the future. So having a tool and a process that is allowing us to see in some months from now which are the main constraints we may have, this is clearly helping us in order to be more prepared and be able to tackle with those issues. Second point, I was mentioning flexibility, again strictly related to what happened in the past 3 years. Being able to build up a supply chain that is able to be very quick in responding to fluctuation of demand. Third point, cost competitiveness related to what I was just mentioning, so being able to be as much as flexible with the lower possible cost without incurring in extra cost, for instance, premium freight or labor losses or inefficiencies in the overall supply chain and also in the production processes. So those, I think, are the main
Thanks, Marco. That's very clear. You started thinking about a planning transformation back in 2020.
Yes, we started the first discussion there, yes.
Exactly. Can you tell more about what triggered this transformation and what were the key priorities at that point in time?
I think, even if we started the discussion many years ago, I would say, I think that the reason and the priorities are the ones that I have just mentioned, plus one related to Marelli itself. As I was quickly anticipating before, Marelli is a pretty new company that is the merge of two very different companies. So the request for integration and standardization was and is still very high. So this is also one of the main reasons why we have decided to start with this journey in order to have a cross and standard planning process across all the plants, all the division, and more reliable information.
Thanks. So today you have deployed O9 in a number of the plants.
Yes.
Can you share more with the audience about the journey so far and what are your key lessons learned?
Yes. Basically, we started a quick introduction of the journey we did. So we started in 2022, beginning of 2022, with the first pilot that was involving a few plants in one division. And then we started at the beginning of 2023 the extension in order to cover all the perimeter. I would say that so far the three main lessons learned are, first of all, the importance of change management. So actually, the main challenge we are dealing with is not related to tool features, implementation, probably neither data, but is related to the change management. So being able to convince people, because then the implementation is done at plant level, it's really the most challenging part. So convince them to change the way in which they used to work since many years, no? With a different approach and following a different process. This is for sure the main challenge. And on this point, it's really critical to have a full alignment of the company, let's say from the top management till the people in the plants, and to set proper trainings to the people, very practical trainings, explaining them which is the expectation and what they basically also have to do practically on the process on the monthly basis. So change management, first lesson learned. Second one is related to data. Still linking to the complexity of Marelli, and just to give you a couple of numbers, we have 130 plants more or less in 7 divisions, and unfortunately we have something around 15 different ERPs worldwide. So as you can imagine, it's not always easy to have common data. So having the possibility to first to get the data, and second to get reliable data is also a pretty tough challenge. When I'm speaking about data, just to add a note, I'm not referring only to operational data, for instance, volumes or actuals or whatever is related to that, but also to data that are linked to the functionalities you want to launch through the process and the tool. Just to make an example, we are very interested in having the possibility to compare on a monthly basis the demand we are receiving from our customer with the contractual obligations we have, in order to make sure that First, they say the two of us are respecting the rules, and in case the rules are not respecting, to put in place the right countermeasure. So having the possibility to know which are all the contractual obligations we have with the customer is not always easy. So when I speak about data reliability, I'm speaking about data 360 degrees in order to make sure that the process is then implemented successfully. Third point is, as a lessons learned, is to follow a step-by-step approach. So in the pilot, we were very eager in starting with everything at the same time. We understood that probably was not the best. And so for the extension, we have decided to approach in a slightly different way. We are implementing basically the SIOP, so Sales Inventory Operations Planning, that is splitting in two main sections, demand planning and supply planning. So based on the experience we got during the pilot, we have decided to proceed in step. So starting with demand planning, and then after some months, starting with the supply plan by plant, division by division. So I think that those are the three main lessons learned.
Thanks for sharing, Marco. So when you think about the complexity that you face, right, and when I talk to similar clients, it can be daunting, right? So if you think about 7 divisions, 120 sites, all coming from different legacy, right? Some from Magneti, Marelli, some from Sonic, with different ERP systems.
Yes.
How did you go about managing that complexity? And what are the takeaways that the audience can have that face similar complexity?
Yeah, maybe we can start with a quick overview on how Marelli is organized from supply chain perspective. So the overall rule is plant first, division second, central team +1. So I'm in the central team, so I'm in charge of coordinating the implementation project we are doing. So the core is the plant. In terms of approach, I was mentioning, we have decided, fortunately, to start with a pilot, pretty small pilot, as I was mentioning, 1 division, 6 plants involved, in order to test the solution, but also the process. So I suggest to approach at the same way, at least for companies with a pretty high complexity. Second step, after the pilot, we have defined the implementation plan. And in order to do that, we were considering many alternatives. At the end, we have decided to give priority to the division with a higher maturity on the process in order to have, let's say, people that are more ready to get with the solution and more ready for the implementation and the follow-up of the process. And then, since the, let's say, IT landscape, as I was mentioning, is pretty complex, we have decided also to approach by waves related to the specific ERPs. So we have started the integration with one ERP, giving priority to the most, to the more ready division, and then step by step, covering all the different ERPs. Another key point is the requirements definition. This is also something that is key, and you need to ensure to have a clear idea during the entire process in order to avoid to continuously collect different input, different requirements from the different subjects you are dealing with, but have clear in mind where you want to go, and then in case some requirements are popping up, put in place some meeting or consensus meeting during which different requests are discussed and agreed all together, in order to avoid at the end to find yourself with 10 different processes or 10 different tools. I was speaking about data. Again, this is for Marelli, but I think is for everyone. Data is something I think you need to take care from the beginning, probably even before to start this kind of path, because making sure the information are available and reliable, this is a key for the success. So you need to make sure that those things are ready even before to start, and to not delay the overall project. Those are, I would say, the input. Maybe a note on where we are as Marelli with implementation. So we started with the project 2022. We started with the extension in beginning of 2023, we are planning to cover, at least with demand planning, almost half of Marelli turnover in terms of plants within the end of this year, and to complete the implementation within the end of 2024. So a pretty challenge timeline, but we will try.
So a pilot and then an aggressive rollout.
Yes.
So, Marco, I know you're very focused on delivering value, right?
Yes.
It has been a central point in most of our discussions. A few questions on that, right? So one, what is the value that you have realized so far? What is the value that you're anticipating? But also, how do you ensure your focus on delivering that value?
We have identified two main clusters of objectives. Let's say hard advantages and soft advantages. For what concerns the hard goals, I would mention for sure inventory turns improvement, thanks to the visibility I was mentioning before, and thanks to a more reliable customer demand forecasting. And losses reduction in terms of premium freight, transportation cost, and labor losses. And then we have a second bucket of objectives that are soft, that are not less important than the hard. Maybe for Marelli are even more interesting. So I was mentioning visibility, so not necessary to go again through it. For Marelli, a key point is the integration of the different plants. So just to make an example, as Marelli, we are often providing different products from different plants, different divisions for the same platform. So up to today, it was not always easy to follow a Marelli approach in terms of the customer, in terms of the product. So in case of demand fluctuation of one specific vehicle, or in case of issues generated even by Marelli by one division, was almost impossible or very difficult, as I said, to follow a unique approach. This is where the tool and the process are helping a lot. So now we are able, when we are foreseeing an issue, to work as a Marelli, combining and putting together all the different stakeholders of all the different divisions in order to define what to do, to set the priorities, and to approach the customer in a unique way as Marelli. And this is, let's say, both sides. And let's say this is one huge advantage that we are seeing and we were not able to follow in the past with the previous setup. Another advantage is the possibility to have clear rules of the game, both with customer but also with suppliers. So the tool and the process are helping us to have clearly in mind which are the rules. So for instance, I was mentioning before contractual capacity we may have with the customer, but it's the same with the supplier. And being able to see if we are breaching one of these rules is helping us to find, first to know in advance, and then to being able to find the right countermeasure to not generate extra cost and to be the most efficient as we can. Those are, I think, the main advantages. And one other, I don't know if this is only Marelli, but I think it's common in all the companies. The process and the tool, because SIOP is not a supply chain process, it is a cross-functional process. So this has to be clearly in mind in all the companies. And this is helping also to reinforce the communication and the collaboration across the different functions, because it's well understood that each of them needs to actively participate and support during the different steps of the monthly planning cycle. So this is also one huge advantage. So the sharing of the information across the different functions that before was not always happening, at least not on time and not in a structured way.